spirit and in truth. This is Family Month. And there are some things we think about family and we celebrate about family. And we are firm about family in this country and across the globe. We still believe in Jamaica that family is one of the primary pillars of our society. That church is one of those pillars as well, and school. Without these institutions, we would not have the kind of society that we have. So while we are rejoicing this morning in a context in which there are a number of zones of special operations across the country, and notwithstanding these, so many persons lost their lives this week in brutal fashion, complete disregard or any consideration of family and what family needs. And so many families continue to be hurt and suffer in different ways in our country. We must ask why and how. And in various ways people ask, what is the church doing? As if there is an expectation of the church as one of those pillars of society that can make a difference, that ought to make a difference, or may have failed in some way, I hesitate to use that word, in the kind of formation that is offered through the church, in the shaping and developing of persons who are guilty of this kind of criminal behavior. But lest we begin to rejoice and say, they are the wicked ones. I want to talk a little this morning about loving passionately, and why loving passionately is an important part, is an important command in the life of believers. The author of John states, dear friends, or actually in the Greek, beloved ones, because the word friends is not, so it is not, the word is not translated friends, but beloved ones. Let us love one another, for love comes from God. Beloved, let us love one another. There has to be, and if you don't agree with me, I want you to think about it seriously. The way we treat one another, is it an indication of the love we have for one another or not? The way we treat one another, is it a demonstration of the love we have for one another or not? This is where the tire hits the road when we talk about loving passionately. Let us pray. Lord, let your word and your light shine and make sense in our life. Teach us to surrender and humble our hearts and lives to hear, to receive, and accept your word. Lord, may the offering be made to you of our lives this morning and of our worship find acceptance in your sight. Lord, you are our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Many of you are familiar with this popular story told in so many different ways about a man who was a little intoxicated, but he went to a meeting where persons were being baptized, and this was by a river, and he sought to be baptized as well. And so the pastor, when he was about to baptize him, smelled the stench of a particular beverage on his breath and decided that he really had to make sure that he covered this one. And so he dipped him in the water and took him up and said, have you found Jesus? Man said, no. He dipped him again, stayed a little longer this time, said, have you found Jesus? He said, no. Pastor looked up and he dipped him a third time. And he made sure that he stayed a little longer this time. Of course, the man was almost out of breath when he took him up. And he asked him, have you found Jesus? The man said, Pastor, I don't know where they put him in the water. But if this is where they put him, I haven't found him down there. I haven't seen him down there. I think we need to know that the question may not be, have you found Jesus? It is not, have you found Jesus? But the question may be, do you love Jesus? Do you love Jesus? It seems almost offensive to be raising this question. Almost insulting to be raising this question of Christian people. Do you love Jesus? Well, we all love Jesus. Come on, what do you mean by that? It is assumed, it is expected that we all love Jesus. No. So what do you expect? We all know and we all love Jesus. But that is not the question at all. The question is, do you love Jesus? And if you love Jesus, how is this love being expressed in your relationship with one another? Is this love being expressed passionately? And what do we mean by passionate love? And what does the author mean by loving one another when he says we are to love one another? The author is saying that you are to seek the welfare. You are to seek the interest and the goodwill. You are to seek the total benevolence of your neighbor, the total welfare of one another, the total interest of one another. It is not only a specific concern or a specific interest, but total interest of the other. So when John is saying love one another, John is saying that you are to deepen your understanding of God and who God is, and the knowledge and your knowledge of God in the world. John is saying that when I ask you or say to you, do you love one another or love one another, is to ensure that each brother or sister was not swayed or seduced by other faith or religious beliefs, but that each brother or sister is driven to love one another because they love God. To love one another is to ensure that the physical, mental, and social well-being of the brother or sister is adequately attended to. It is to know that such person is not in need, that such person is not in need of knowledge of God, that such person is not in need of any material substance, that such person is not in need of any emotional or mental growth. It is to make the interest, the welfare of the other, the object and goal of our concern. Am I making sense when I define it like this? That when we love one another, the object of our love is the other person. The other person is the focus. The other person is who we are interested in. Is that how we tend to love? Is it true that the way we love generally is where we put ourselves first? Is where we consider what it is that we are getting out of it when we love? Isn't it the normal way for us when we love? We consider, how am I going to be loved in return? Or what is in this for me when we love? Or how am I going to benefit from giving up my time, for giving up my resources, or for showing any love to this person? When John says love one another, John is not saying that this is about how you feel. John is saying that this is about how you relate. It is not about how you feel. Because we may not feel like loving somebody. We may feel unhappy. We may feel sad or angry towards another person. John is not asking about how we feel. The author is not concerned about the way we feel. The author is asking about, do you love? How do you relate to the other person? When he says we are to love one another, he's asking about relationship. It's not about feeling. Feeling is personal. Relationship is social and moral and involves the other. Okay? So feeling, it stops here. But when we talk about relationship, when we talk about loving another, it is drawing our attention to an ethical principle. It is asking us to go beyond ourselves, beyond our needs, beyond our concerns, beyond what satisfies us, beyond what leads to our interest and welfare. It is asking us to shine the camera or focus the light on the other person. To love one another means the other person is our focus, interest, and intention. Then, my brothers and sisters, if this is how we are to love, the author says then, dearly beloved, and he's speaking to believers, let us love one another. This is an injunction, an imperative he's giving to the whole community of believers. He says, let all of us. It is not only one individual. It is not only one person. But let all of us as a community love one another. He's encouraging all of us. Let us. He appeals to the community of believers. He appeals to the community of the beloved. Let us love one another. And then he explains why we ought to do this. Not because we like some persons more than the other. Not because some persons are in our family. Not because some persons are always looking out for us. Not because we are in a special kind of community, as it were. No, he's saying that we are to love one another because God is the source of that love. That's how we identify God. He's talking about identity here. We are to love one another. And this love is identified as coming from God. The author is saying that love is from God. It is from God, who is love, that all love takes its source. It is from God, who is love, that all love takes its source. Let me see if I can amplify this or illustrate this for us. When those of you who drive, when you started your car this morning, as you turn the key, it started, eh? There is a power source that makes the engine turn over. And then the petrol or whatever fuel you use in it, whether gas or diesel, is what keeps it moving. Because you don't have to start it again once you have started it and it moves. But that's the power source. So the power source is either the battery, or some of you may have, or electronic. Some drive on electricity, special electric current. But the power source that energizes that car is the battery power. That's what drives that car. If you had started your vehicle and it didn't start, you would check to see if the battery is okay. And if you check the battery and the light is out, or the light is elevated, the light is bright, you realize that this car not start this morning, this vehicle not starting. So you have to go to your neighbor and get a jump start. Or you might have to leave the car and call one of the battery companies and say, come and give me a... In other words, the power source is not responding. When you go home last night, and if you were not at home, if you left home when it was daylight, and you got home when it was dark, and you didn't have one of those photocell lights outside, you had to turn on the light. And when it came on, you were happy. But if it didn't come on, you'd get very concerned, wouldn't you? You would wonder, wonder if somebody disconnect the power source. And then you're going to ask the person in your house, did you pay the light bill? Because you're going to get concerned. You turn it off and you switch it again and it didn't go, you're going to get concerned. I wonder if somebody disconnected the power. In other words, there is an action there is a result that you expect from a particular action. The action is to switch on the light. And you expect that it will come on because the power source is connected. If it doesn't, then there is a disconnect between the power source and the intended outcome. When John says love one another, because love comes from God, he said that God is the power source for our love. We can't love unless God says so. We can't love unless God gives the love. We can't love unless we are in God like a branch connected to the vine. We can't love unless we are connected to the source. So when you turn it on and it don't come, you have to ask, am I connected? When you try to find the love and the love not flowing, you have to ask, who turned off the power source? When you start it and it's not revving, you have to ask, are you still connected? Are you with me? John is saying that we must love one another because the source of that love is from God. In fact, human love, nobody can love apart from God. Every expression of love comes from God, has God as its source. Human love is a reflection of something in the divine nature itself. Any expression of love, the brightness of a smile, one of the places I like to see when people really demonstrate love, or where the evidence of love comes out in a particular human connection, is sometimes at the airport where people greeting one another. The smile on their faces, the warm hugs, that is an expression of, I'm so happy to see you, I'm delighted to reconnect with you. The expressions that we have of love comes from God. One church father says that real Christians, listen, real Christians practices being God. What does he mean, practices being God? It is God's nature to love. So when we love, we are actually practicing being God. You understand? It's not the other sense when we talk about lording it over and taking over the lives of other people and controlling other people's lives and dominating other people's lives. We tend to see God in that way. But that's not God. God is absolutely. God is love. And so when we can find it in our heart to love our enemies, that's why Jesus said, love your enemies. We by our own effort can't love our enemies. Can't love the people who make life uncomfortable for us. We can naturally love the people who grind us in the ground. We can naturally love the people who imprison us with their hostility and hatred. We can naturally love the people who make life miserable and unbearable for us. But through God, we can love our worst enemies. Because love comes from God. So when John says love one another, he's saying that the source of our love is God. We do not have the capacity by ourselves to love in our own strength and to love on our own. It is from God. Our love is at best selfish and self-centered. We want attention. And our love is at best the kind of love that seeks to get the attention of others. Our love tends to be transactional. As I said earlier, it is driven mostly by what we will benefit and how we will benefit. On the other hand, God's love is self-revealing. What does the author say? He says, this is how God showed his love among us. This is how God revealed his love among us. He sent his own Son, his one and only Son, into the world that we might live through him. This is love. So he says love is self-revealing. revealing. It is God who reveals himself. It is God who shows himself by love. By God's action, we see love demonstrated. God's love is revealed through Christ, who comes and offers himself as a sacrifice for us. God gave his son, but Jesus also surrendered his life. God gave his son, but Jesus offered his life. Says, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. For God so loved that he gave. God gave. So God's love is self-giving. It gives of oneself. It gives of God's self. It does not hold back anything. It does not look for any reward. It does not look for any recompense. It does not look for any appreciation. It does not look for any response at all. You know that kind of love is hard. Because most time when we do something, we expect something in return. We expect some appreciation. We expect some love in return. We expect that the persons are going to recognize and give us some kind of reward or some kind of something to say that this is all the achievement we have gained for loving the way we have. But that is not how God loves. God loves, and there is nothing that he expects. So God's love is self-giving. It gives of itself. God is light, not darkness. And when you love, you live in the light of God. My brothers and sisters, what we heard about in Grange Hill this week is pure darkness. It's pure darkness. That's not love. That is not light. Love is light, not darkness. The members of the Grange Hill Baptist Church this morning are mourning the loss of a Sunday school scholar who was killed among those 7 persons last week or during the week. Here's a young man from their congregation who was killed as part of a family. That is not light. Love is not hate. Love is not selfish. So in our human relationship, we need to see love in action. Love must be evident not only in our action as human beings, but also not only in our relationship as human beings, but also in the policies of our government and in how we develop policies in relation to one another. But you know, there's another place where we learn that love is reciprocal. It is not about the give and take kind of love. You pat my back, I pat yours. You give me something, I give you something in return. Love is reciprocal in a sense, and I was sharing this with the church council on Thursday evening in Hebrews 13, verse 1, where the author of Hebrews says, let mutual love continue. And for love to be the mutual love he's talking about here is the love that comes from God to others and the love that others give God back. The love that you give, what kind of love you give to God? Think of it. If love is mutual, mutual means you and the other person love together. If love is reciprocal, you give love and you receive love, the same quality of love, from a sincere heart, from a true heart, not expecting anything in return, but loving because the initiative came from God. So you love because God first loved. You with me? You love because God first loved. So when love is reciprocal and God extends it, and when we give back love to God, we give love in worship. Amen. Hallelujah. Amen. We give love in worship because that is how we relate to God. Amen. God gives us life and everything else we have with it. But when we give back to God, we give sincere worship. Amen. Not only worship, but we give obedience, which we are coming to look at. And when we give back to God, we also love one another. And when we love one another, the reciprocal relationship with our neighbors continue. Because we love our neighbors and our neighbors love us back. But our neighbors are not only in the church, but our neighbors are outside the church. So when we don't only love those in the church, because sometimes we may feel that the only person we should love are those in the church. But then, because love is reciprocal, we give love also to those outside the church. Those who are not members of the household of God. And when that love is given, do you think it can make a difference to the world? Do you think it could impact the level, the attitude that people have, so that they may choose whether they are going to exercise reprisal, whether they are going to exercise revenge or not? God is the source of love. We love because He first loved us. Tell your neighbor or tell the person to your right side, God is the source of our love. The second thing I want to note is that not only is God the source, which is about identity, but when we love, you know what we do? When we love, we testify to God's love. We make a statement that God lives in us. Since we cannot love without God, when we love, we are making a statement that God lives within us. Does that follow? Yes. We can't love on our own. Okay? We can't love on our own. We don't have the capacity to love on our own. There is not the inclination or intention or desire to love on our own, or to seek the interest and welfare, total welfare of another human being. It doesn't come from us naturally. So when we love, we are making a statement that God lives in us. Hallelujah. We are testifying to one another and to the world that yes, if you want to know where God is, look at those Christian people, how they love one another. You are making a statement. You are presenting a position by your life. Hey, God lives in me. That is why in the passage, John says, if you say love God and you hate your neighbor, he used a particular word. He used the L word to describe it. He says, you're lying. You're not quite speaking the truth. You're bending it. You're twisting it. You're lying. Because you can't say you love God who you don't see and can't see. And your neighbor who you see, you pass them by on the other side. That is why Peter and John, when they came out of the temple and they saw the man at gate beautiful, they couldn't pass by on the other side. That is why the story of the Samaritan stands out, because Jesus is saying that this man, unlike the priest and the Levite, they pulled themselves away on the other side. They were not making a statement that God was with them. They were not testifying that God was with them, but they were keepers of the church. They were preservers of the law in the church. They were builders of the church, and the church stood on them because they were the pillars of the church. Are you perceptive? Are you seeing with me that you can have people who are pillars of the church, but they pass by on the other side in the face of human need and human sorrow and human pain? And we pass by in different ways. And I'm going to tell you some of the ways we pass by. But it's important to note, my brothers and sisters, that when we love, we are making a statement. We are testifying by our life that God lives in us. So what is the opposite of that love? When we don't love, what are we saying? Or what could we be saying? We saying that God not in us? I sure know that you want anybody to believe that as Christian, that God not living in us. But if we don't love, we are making that statement. We make a statement that we know God. That's also what we are doing. We are making a statement that we know God. Whoever does not love does not know God. In verse 8, says John, if we know God, then we must obey God. If we have a knowledge of God, and the knowledge of God that John is talking about is not mental knowledge. And many students know this. Some finish exams and some are doing exams still. It is not mental knowledge. And especially if you have a practical component, you know that you can write anything on the paper. But when you are asked now to demonstrate it in the lab, you can do foolishness. I am not making any judgment, but I sometimes wonder what those students at a particular school were doing a chemical experiment and they lab low with them when they were doing the experiment. One day they were following instructions. I have a little story. I got a bronze medal yesterday. I came third. I won't tell you how many persons were in the contest, but I came third. The important thing to note is that in that contest, and I'm grateful for those members who were present in the Rev Chef competition, and some were not aware of their pastor's culinary skills. But I had some helpers, you know. And one of the things I found out is that ultimately it was my responsibility to present the final product. My responsibility. But you know, as a little point, the instructions and communication got a little mixed up. And we end up with the wrong thing. Can you imagine what happened in a situation like that? What I dreamed of and imagined and prepared the night before. And you know, when you go to an exam and say, yes, it come. It was right there. But some little disconnect in the communication led to that last round not coming out as we expected. And I had to kind of offer an explanation that never seemed to have sat well with the judges. But the point is, it is not only head knowledge that matters. You get the point? You have to know the thing, but you have to demonstrate it. So if you go in the kitchen and you know, you have an idea how to cook soup, demonstrate it now. And make sure that when you finish it, somebody can eat it and drink it. Demonstrate it. So you can talk a whole lot and tell everybody what you can do and how you can do it. Practice it. Get the thing down. There are a lot of things that may happen in the moment, but that is the evidence and that is the test. So my brothers and sisters, it is in that moment, sometimes at our weakest moment, that we are tested greatest. It is when we are most vulnerable that we are tested the most. It is when we are down on rock bottom, when there is no way out, left or right. It is when we are down, when everything seems to be pulling away from around us, that the world will know and we will know whether truly God dwells within us. It is usually in those moments. So if we know God, then we must obey God. Part of the reason why I think that people or members don't obey God, our believers don't obey God, is that we don't really know God. We don't trust God. We don't think that God going to come true for us. We don't think that God going to deliver for us. We don't think that God going to honor God's promises in our lives. Because we don't know God. We know about God, but we don't have a personal relationship with God. We know about God because our grandmother went to church and we went to church in Sunday school. We know about God because our spouse went to church and we got to church. We know about God because our children got to church and we got to church as well. But we don't know God for ourselves. I challenge you this morning, brothers and sisters, do you know God in a personal way? When you know God, obedience is not something that has to be bartered. Obedience is not something that anybody has to pry out of you or dig out of you that you use a crowbar. than like when you use a crowbar to pull some metal thing that lock tight and you can't pull it with your naked hand. Obedience is not something that has to be pried out of you. Service is not something that anybody has to beg and plead and almost bow down to you and ask you please to help. Nobody has to do that. When you love, you beg to serve. When you really love, you beg to give. When you really love, you beg to offer what God has blessed you with. Nobody begs you. You do it because God dwells in you and you want to testify to the world that God dwells in you. This is the ethic demanded of Christ's disciples in the world, that we are as God is in the world. We are as God is in the world. You know, it is very easy for Christians to get distracted when we are not persecuted. We sometimes feel that nobody is persecuting us. Our church is not being burnt down for racist reasons. Our churches, and there may be other reasons, our church is not being burnt down for religious reasons. We can come to church. The only difficulty we may have now is that we have to drive a little longer and spin around and come in. Or walk a little further and come in. And when we want to move from one side of the road to the other, we have to walk further. Or look around and jump the wall, as I see some people do it. In other words, these are the inconveniences that we may face. But they are peripheral inconveniences. For some people, their lives are taken away from them. They can't worship. People in Nigeria and parts of Pakistan and India and parts of East Europe. There are some Christians who can't live a normal lives. They live on the ground. We not face that kind of persecution. But you know the other thing that faces us? Seduction. We are seduced within the church because we get into a comfort zone. Our challenge and crisis is not persecution externally, but internal seduction. We are seduced by the false teachings and false philosophies and false beliefs. That's what seduces us as church. So we grab onto a particular philosophy. We grab onto a particular thought or particular learning or particular idea, and we allow that to lead our lives. Everybody is doing it. Everybody latch on. Everybody has the app. Everybody sign on without understanding why. Without understanding where it is going. We have to be careful of the internal seduction. Brothers and sisters, you don't face the external pressure, but it comes from outside. You know, there's a little phrase, a little word that John uses, and I want to say something quickly on it before I move to my third and final point. Looking at the clock. Is the relationship between fear and love. And he says, perfect love casts out all fear. Okay? What is it that John is saying? John is saying that when we think of fear, we imagine punishment. Okay? Who punishes? It is the king, it is the lawgiver, it is the principal, it is the head teacher, same principal, it is the head police or something, it is the law. So we fear those persons will punish. But guess what? When there is love, there's no need for fear. Love takes away that fear. When we know God is not that kind of lawgiver, God is not that kind of person who's going to lord over us, who's going to punish us. But when we know God is forgiving and caring and sensitive and understanding, then it takes the fear out of love. But the only fear we have and should have is knowing that we grieve God by disobedience. If there's any fear, it is the fear in knowing that we grieve God. So you don't want to know you're in a context where you're grieving God by your disobedience. God challenges us on that. And so the final observation is that, the second observation is that when we love, we are making a statement. When we love, we are testifying to God's love in us, or that God dwells in us. When we love, thirdly, we multiply or grow God's love in us. How does John say that? He says it at the end of verse 12. He says, no one has ever seen God. But if we love one another, God lives in us, which is the testimony, and His love is made complete or made perfect in us. In other words, when you love, the more you have the desire to love. The more you want to love. It is love. It is in the action of loving that your love for God is multiplied. Your love for others is multiplied. Your love will never grow if it is never exercised. Are you with me? Love cannot move from where it is. It can't grow if you don't use it. It is just one of those experiences in our life that the more you give it away like your faith, the more it grows for you. That's what it is. So the more you love, the more you give. I could ask anybody to stand up and testify now. When you give, you get a certain joy out of giving. And that joy pushes you to give more. You want to give more. It is not so much the fact that others will even shake your hand and say thank you. It is the fact that you get a tremendous sense of joy in giving. And I know, as I said, that I could ask people to testify about that this morning. But hold the testimony for another morning. But the fact is, your love is multiplied when you give it away. I want to turn to a story. But before I go to the story, John says no one has ever seen God. We are God's ambassadors. We are the image of God in the world. As people see us, they see God. So the fractions and the divisions within the church are scandalous because they do not reflect the presence of God. We are the face of God in the world. We are the face of God in the world. When the world sees us, they see God. Boy, this challenged me when I was preparing this. And I have a question here. When others look at you, what are they seeing? I'm going to whisper that again. Let me make a statement. We are the face of God in the world. When the world sees us, they see God. So the question is, when others look at us, what are they seeing? Say to your neighbor on the left this time, what are you going to tell them? We are the face of God in the world. Can you imagine? We are the face of God in the world. The more we love, the more we grow. And the more God's love is perfected and completing us, in us. And I want to close with this story, which is in the Acts passage. What is the Acts passage that demonstrates the growth of this love? One of the ways that love is demonstrated by Philip. Philip was walking and he saw this man sitting down. And he was reading. The man was reading aloud. And he discovered that this was no ordinary man or ordinary citizen. The King James talks about the Ethiopian eunuch. But what we learn of the Ethiopian eunuch was that he was actually the chancellor of the exchequer, like the minister of finance of his country. And he was sitting and reading the scripture. He was an Egyptian, but he was inquiring after God. And so Philip saw him. Now, Philip could have said, boy, I go to that rich man there, I don't know how he's going to react. Philip could have sided up and said, well, I don't want anybody to see me and think me and talk to this rich man and I'll push up to get some favor. Are you hearing me? Okay. So Philip could have second-guessed himself a number of times as to why he should have acted. But he went alongside the man and said, tell me something. Do you understand what you're reading? What a question. The man could have said, who are you asking me if I understand what I'm reading? Don't you see who I am? Don't you know who I am? Don't you know I'm an intellectual? Of course I understand what I'm reading. That's the question. Philip was asking, is it making sense? Is it really making sense? I'm not asking about your intellectual ability, but is your spirit being awakened when you read this passage? And so he began to interpret for him. And by doing so, the man understood, and the man believed, and the man said, listen, I want to be a part of your community. I want to be a part of your faith community. You see the process? He went to the man, saw him in action, used the occasion to connect with the man, and God used that to lead the man to surrender to him. Part of showing love, my brothers and sisters, and helping your love to grow is our willingness to spot other people and to come alongside them and say, my brother, my sister, how are you coping? How are you managing? It may not be that they're reading scripture, but by their eyes or by their words or by their facial expression or by what they do, you may lead to ask, how are you doing? And in doing that, you get an opportunity to share more with them and explain the word of God, and they come into an awakening of the truth. That is a demonstration of love. That's a demonstration of love. It is to go alongside others. And I ask you today, how many persons have you gone alongside for the last week? How many persons, maybe at work, maybe at home, maybe your neighbor who you have stopped, maybe a client, maybe your supervisors or bosses, how many persons have you stopped and asked that question? Maybe a colleague. Have you asked that question? Do you understand? It could make a world of a difference, my brothers and sisters, because it is demonstrating that you desire for your love to grow. That's an expression of your love. And as you give it, it will grow. So what are we saying? All of this is about loving passionately. Loving passionately is not about a feeling. It is understanding that God is the source of our love. When we love, we do it because God is the example manifested in Jesus Christ, who came to earth and showed how we are to love. Love is identified with Christ. He's the source. When we love, we are making a statement that God lives in us. We are testifying to what God has done and is doing in our lives. When we love, we are multiplying God's love in our life. It's an example of growth. It's evidence, an indication of growth, that we are growing, because the more we love, hallelujah, the more we grow in the grace of God. Then I must ask, what is hindering us, my brothers and sisters? As the Ethiopian eunuch, as the chief of finance in Ethiopia said, here is water. What does hinder me from being baptized? Philip did the job and went on his way rejoicing. The Ethiopian went on his way rejoicing. How many persons are you allowing to rejoice each day they come in contact with you? I challenge you for this week. Find me one person. Allow the Lord to lead you to one person, that when you leave that encounter, you can rejoice. And that person can rejoice as well. Amen. Amen. Let us go ahead and pray. Dear God, how we love you. For we desire nothing else but to know you, to understand you, to understand your love, and to obey you. For we desire nothing else, O God, but to put you first in our lives. Give us the courage. Give us the confidence. Give us the grace we need to understand and to know that it is only when we rest in you that we can truly love as you want us to. It is only when we wait upon you. It is only when our souls are connected with you. It is only when we are recipients of your grace and we understand that we are, that we can truly experience what you have for us, your true love. We ask you today, oh God, wherever we are from, whatever is our experience, whatever our status in you, Lord, give us one more opportunity to experience your love in its fullness. Help us, oh God, to honor you by loving you who first loved us. To honor you by surrendering our lives to you. If we are already walking with you, to become more direct and intentional in testifying about you by loving. In multiplying our love, by giving it away, by sharing it with others, by pulling others alongside us. Lord, if we have not begun to walk with you, and if we have been wondering about this love, we now ask you in the name of Jesus to help us to surrender all to you in obedience to you and to follow you in love. Hear our prayers, O Lord. For we pray in Jesus' name.